We have a good story by Mike Mazzeo right now at Legal Sports Report talking about Texas and doing a bit of a post-mortem on what happened. Now, to be clear, we all thought from the jump Texas was a long shot this year. And the fact that it even passed the House, I think, has to be seen as something of a victory for anybody interested in the long-term prospects for legal sports betting in Texas. But there were some very strange things to come out of this whole process. For instance, have you ever seen the sponsor of a bill be unwilling to do a media interview at any point during a legislative session touting the merits of that bill? That happened here with Senator Lois Kolkhorst in Texas. Mike Mazzeo probably wore out the phone line to her press office trying to get an interview for a bill that she signed her name to and carried. Nope, nothing happened there. There was some belief that Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, might have softened his stance. By the time we got to the end of the session, that belief looked more like blind, misled hope than anything, because Dan Patrick did not seem to give any indication that this was going to happen. So, Dustin, after seeing Mike's reporting and looking at what's happened here in terms of the comments that we've seen about Texas, do you believe that even in 2025 that there's a real chance for this happening if Dan Patrick is in office until 2026?
I mean, the chance is non-zero, but I read Mike's piece, and I'm equally pessimistic about what's going to happen in Texas. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, we passed through the House, got 2 years here, we're going to get it the rest of the way. It doesn't look like that on its face. It's certainly progress, and you'd rather have progress than not, but everything that's going to be against online sports betting happening in Texas is still going to be in play in 2025. The biggest thing is that Patrick is still there, and he's come out like, unless there's support from the Republican caucus in the Senate, nothing's going anywhere. And so what changes there? What is going to change meaningfully? Again, we don't have a legislative session next year. It goes to 2025 for Texas. So it's tough to see it right now. It doesn't mean things can't change, but it feels dead on arrival almost in 2025 as well, unless, I don't know. We've talked up the Mark Cubans and the Jerry Joneses of the world really getting involved and, getting this going. That's what it's going to take, I think, is that they're going to get personally involved almost. Like, they've said stuff about it, but they haven't thrown their political capital, all their chips behind it. It doesn't feel like to me. So if they really think this is important, and I don't know how important either of them thinks it is, that's what it's going to take, is that, the sports leagues are the ones who are going to, the leagues and the teams in Texas are the ones that are going to push this forward. And if they can't move that needle on the Senate Republican side, then it just feels dead. So it doesn't mean things can't change. There's a lot of time between now and then, but it feels rough right now.
It feels rough, Dustin, because I think it is extremely rough for Texas, because it's almost as though you pushed up to the ceiling and you found out that ceiling is reinforced steel under about 20 feet of dirt. Like, to get up to the surface is going to be extremely difficult here. Whatever optimism there was around sports betting, you're right, ties back to the fact that Jerry Jones had said that he was interested. Mark Cuban had said that he was interested. Tillman Fertitta had said that he was interested. And what we saw when the rubber truly met the road was that Jerry Jones wasn't anywhere to be found, was that Tillman Fertitta wasn't anywhere to be found. And Mark Cuban had an email exchange with Mike Mazzeo in which he basically said, I'm more interested in casino legislation that would help turn Texas into a vacation destination than I am specifically about sports betting standalone. And so then you start to get back into the Las Vegas Sands opposition to wider casino expansion before you even begin to talk about Dan Patrick being willing, as the president of the Senate, to let anything hit the floor there that his caucus would have to vote on. It feels as though there are major roadblocks that are interconnected that have to be moved when it comes to Texas. And I don't know. I mean, it's ahead of Florida. To me, it's ahead of California, just because of the seeming intractability. I don't know if that's a word, but I might have made it up right there.
It's a word.
It does not feel, we're going to go with it. It has truthiness. It doesn't feel like California, with the animosity there, is anywhere close. Florida, of course, is still tied up in court. I thought Texas had the best chance of the group. And because of the legislative path, it just doesn't feel that way at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still put it ahead. I agree with you. It's way ahead of California right now. Like things can change in Texas in 2 years in a way that I don't think things can change in California. Like I don't see how that's going to change meaningfully in the next 2 years. So yes, if you're gonna do who's gonna legalize first, it may be both never. But if I'm gonna bet on Texas ahead of California for sure.
Well, North Carolina, January 2024 is the first effective date. Kentucky's hoping for the beginning of this NFL season. Vermont, report up from Sam McQuillan at LSR right now. Governor Phil Scott is likely to sign that bill this week, so that market can get going. And oh boy, if you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening in Maine with a bill that was passed and signed a long time ago, and what's been happening with the regulator of the Maine Gambling Control Unit, I suggest you go to Legal Sports Report and read some very interesting reporting there. Dustin can be found on Twitter at Dustin Gouker. I am there at Adam Candee, as Matt would say, 2 E's, no Y. Matt hopefully will rejoin us next week as we near 200 episodes of the LSR podcast. Always free, always available at all of the podcast platforms where you get your audio enjoyment, and on YouTube as well. For Dustin, I'm Adam. See you next week.